Good evening, everyone. It's Brady from Late Weather Forecast, and tonight we are doing a video on the obvious Hurricane Isaias. And, well, what's happening right now is it's making a little bit of an extratropical transition now, so interacting with the jet stream, and it's been able to go through a little bit of the venting process too, and it's been able to strengthen right before landfall into mid upper 80s mile per hour category 1 hurricane. Pressure in multiple locations dropped to a 986 millibars. So I think we can fair enough to say that it was lower than the 988 than the drop zone reported from the Hurricane Hunter's recon. But what we're dealing with right now is the tornado situation that is really, really, really impactful. Let's see one out there by Ocracoke right now. Like some good rotation going on there. That should have a tornado warning on it any second. I can probably solve that pretty quickly. Looks like no. They should have a tornado warning on it by now. But yeah, tornado warnings up here. Towards the Virginia border up here in North Carolina. That is a very strong rotation right there. That is not good. That has to be a tornado on the ground. I might as well just check. Well, man, that is a definite tornado on the ground between Windsor and Jamesville. So by the time this is done, it won't be there. But I would ask any of your friends if you know live in this area what they saw. But really, the concern is now as it moves up the East Coast here, as I'll switch back towards the Morehead City radar site. As it moves to the north and northeast, as we look at this track here, it's going to be something like this, I imagine, going to the northeast. So currently it's an 80 mile per hour hurricane with much characteristics, kind of like Sandy did a little bit. Has some of those Sandy characteristics where the wind field, not as much as the expansion of the wind field, which actually is getting a little larger, but mainly because of the interaction with the jet stream, it's going to allow for wind gusts to pick up and around this. I want to draw this area right here, and as I push north here, I'm looking at for some really, really strong wind gusts to take place, in these locations, potentially 75 plus miles per hour, and even some locations seeing 85 plus miles per hour is not out of the question. And then obviously we can see another area for strong wind gusts is right here. Obviously I just showed part of that for 75 plus gusts possible, but here this is where 65 plus mile per hour gusts are possible as well. And in the short term, we're looking at gusts 75 possible all the way right here, where 75 mile per hour gusts are most definitely possible right now, because I'm actually watching TWC right now, and I can see Wilmington gusting to about 70 miles per hour. So definitely some strong wind gusts still happening. For sure. If you take a look here, as Wilmington appears to be in the backside of that eye wall right now, appears to still be holding on pretty strong. So, and these bands are just feeding tornadic activity right now. That's not actually why they're called feeder bands, but they're just providing tornadic activity, and they have been all night. I mean, there's been at least half a dozen tornadoes tonight for sure, and I'm sure by the morning there'll be at least a dozen tornadoes to happen, if not more. So a tornado watch exists all the way through up from eastern North Carolina and into southeastern Virginia right now, and that will expand. In that tornado watch, there will be a tornado watch, I guarantee you, for any of these areas. Any of those areas will be in a tornado watch, I guarantee you, tomorrow. So um, at some point, the tornado risk is even here. And I was even reading discussion, if I send it back home closer to my area, I was reading the NWS Boston discussion, and they said that they have a feeling that there's going to be a few tornadoes tomorrow in the NWS Boston region. So anywhere in here, they are expecting a few tornadoes tomorrow to happen. So that is at least that's what it appears. That's what they're thinking. Those are their thoughts for tomorrow evening, for tornadic activity to start in the late afternoon is what they're predicting. But the real thing we need to talk about is I'll shift where I want to shift here. Yeah, I'll shift here. Is the rainfall, and I'll go through all these things. If you want to pause and look at some of these quickly, the windfields were, you can see that. I'll stop that for a second. The wind field, fairly large, especially for a tropical system. You can see the spaghetti models are pretty much on point. Although I am going to have to agree, I think it's going to be just slightly more east. I've seen so many times before, they predict these tracks to happen, and it moves just a little bit more east more than they actually predict. So I'm going to go with something about 10 to 20 miles east, track-wise, of what they're actually going to do, in my opinion. And hurricane probabilities are right there. So again, it will be interesting to see how long it hangs on to hurricane strength for, because that could be very, very interesting. And looking at the beginning arrival time of tropical storm force winds, so likely around 7 p.m. in Boston, 7 p.m. in Boston, around 6 p.m. in Hartford, around 4 to 5 p.m. likely in Hartford, 5 to 6 p.m. in Worcester, 6 to 7 p.m. in Boston. You can see flash flooding guidance here, very heavy rainfall likely. Sea surface temperatures plenty warm to support, but we're not dealing with that anymore. Rainfall potential here, I would shift that a little bit to the east more. That's actually just about fine, but I would shift the 1 to 2 inches a little bit more to the east. And I've actually had some questions about that today. These tropical rain bands, when they move through, are extremely, extremely potent. So yes, it's a little bit more isolated, but they are extremely potent. And this tropical rainfall I'm looking at here, that there's no doubt you see those 6 to 10 inches, take that very seriously, because that's a real threat. But there's no doubt that when those, especially looking at the tornadic activity that's going to happen, there's no doubt that they just produce rainfall so quickly. Even I'm going to go to Faye for an example. When I caught the outer bands of Faye out in central Massachusetts here, where I live, and the radar scans were like dark greens and barely yellows, and it was some of the most intense rainfall I've ever seen before. So quickly picked up like a half inch of rainfall in like 15 minutes. So that's why I think the rainfall is going to be extremely, extremely potent, especially for where we live here in eastern Mass, central Massachusetts, and it's definitely going to be extremely potent, where 1 to 3 plus inches of rainfall will happen across the central and western parts of the state for sure. And then anywhere from at least, I think, 3/4 of an inch up to 2 inches is definitely possible for much of eastern Massachusetts, and more is possible. Flash flooding potential, is likely here over the next 3 days. The guidance, I mean, that you rarely see anything like that. Just the region where it extends from is extremely high. Peak surge, that's over with now, for South Carolina, and mostly over for North Carolina. But it is not mostly, sorry, for the North South Carolina border is mostly over, but it's not over. Look at that. That is new. That 3 to 5 feet. Take this very seriously, because the onshore flow is going to come and it's going to bring that water onto Cape Hatteras, and that's going in a low-lying area at high tide. That's why there's 3 to 5 feet there, and I'm really concerned about a place like Ocean City, Maryland, too, where they could potentially see, would be surprised, 2 to 4 feet of surge as well, based on the lay of the land. It's not as easy as a place like Cape Hatteras to get that water to just stack up and push its way into land. It's a little harder, but I still gonna expect they have 1 to 3 feet. I'm gonna go with 2 to 4 feet in a spot like Ocean City, though. For sure, they're gonna have some significant storm surge, much more than usual. And look at the OZs. Yeah, there's not gonna be much increase in intensity now. Go out 24 hours, but look where all the guidance is. 24 hours from now. Look at all the ranges still in a Cat 1. I mean, how many models do we have? We have 5 models in the Cat 1 range. And many other models are at the 60 knot range 24 hours from now. And 24 hours from now, this storm, and so this is from the 00Z guidance. So 24 hours from now, though, 24 hours from 9 o'clock, that storm is going to be up into New England. So if we're looking at a 65 mile per hour tropical storm, sustained winds in New England, and again, that pockets of sustained winds are in a very small place. But if those are to last as a 65 mile per hour tropical storm, add on that speed it's moving at, 25-30 miles per hour, we're looking at gusts 80 plus miles per hour are very possible. So that is my huge concern with this system here. And take a look at it again. These are just GFS ensemble members. Disregard that. We take a look here at all the ensemble members, all the model runs, tropical models plus ensembles here. See, there's still a little bit of a range, but it's not very broad anymore. It's pretty tight. You can see exactly where it's going to go. I think it's going to, in my opinion, I think it's going to pass very close to New York City, the center of circulation. That's just my opinion. I think it's going to be 10, 15 miles east. Again, I could be wrong, but based on what I've seen in history, very rare that we see storms move directly north like this. So again, it'll be interesting to see what happens, but that's how it goes from now. And we'll take a look at the microwave imagery. Actually, pretty interesting, because the core, this was late last night. You could see it really starting to tighten up, and it looked really good. It started developing eye, had really, really good convection. Cloud tops near 9 degrees Celsius popping. And at one point today, it developed an eye and then kind of lost it, and then got it again right before landfall. So, yeah, that's basically what's happened with this storm for the last 24 to 36 hours now. You can see it really developing up to 75 knots right before landfall, and wind shear very high, and it's going to use that to its advantage. Again, this is wind shear tendency, but very high. The wind shear is, and it's going to use it to its advantage already, and it's going to continue to do so. That's what we're doing. Take a look at the vorticity. There, very, very strong vorticity image right there, which is another good indication of a very strong tropical system. And Saharan air dust, not an issue with this system was in the beginning, not anymore, for sure. And you can see invest, I believe it's 94L there, turning around, spinning with the P watts over there at around 2 inches, and or more than 2 inches, I should say, around 2.5 inches. But look at these P watts here, incredibly high, 3 inches over land. That's what's going to provide such easy rainfall. So you don't need as strong as radar echoes as you do as with a regular thunderstorm with tropical systems, because the P watts are just so much higher. The dew points are a lot higher. Humidity is all allowing for this to happen, for the rain to fall much easier to the ground. And that is what makes the some of these systems just so potent. So I'll slide it back here. I have some images that I want to show. And here, power outage map. Take a look right here. Widespread power outages. So not the best thing in the world, for sure. You want to see on a map. And we take a look at wind gusts from the Euro 18Z earlier today. They were strong. They were really, really strong, over 95 miles per hour, max 102 miles per hour on this map listed. Excuse me, I'm tired, but 70 mile per hour gusts extending into central Massachusetts and extending up into New Hampshire too, more importantly. And here's a likelihood of seeing 39 plus mile per hour sustained winds here. And that's rare we see something like that. This is what's making this system so special here. And here is the mean of the ensemble members of the Euro, showing extremely high numbers. This is out of all the ensemble members that run, and the mean is these numbers, the floor basically. You can look at it in another way. That's not exactly what it translates to or what it means, but that's a good way of looking at it, if that helps. And just extremely strong wind gusts. So those are the conditions we're going to be dealing with soon. And take one last look at the radar here. And it's powerful to look at. Powerful system is going to bring lots of rain, heavy rainfall. 4 to 8 inches is possible in many locations across I-95, and then some places seeing up to 10 inches cannot be ruled out, or more, up to a foot of rain in some places can't be ruled out. And then as you move more north, widespread 2 to 4 inches likely, and then the further north you move will become extratropical, completely extratropical, and will likely be not much of a threat anymore once it gets to Canada. So just some gusty conditions, probably with gusts no more than 40-50 miles per hour. So that is what that's the end of my discussion tonight. We take a look here, give you one last look at the radar. Eye wall still hitting places like Jacksonville, a weaker eye wall hitting places like Murrysville, Wilmington, Jacksonville, Fayetteville even now. Kind of a older, weaker eye wall, but that's how it's looking right now. Tornado warnings will continue across North Carolina and Virginia tonight, and into the early morning will move their way up into Maryland and Delaware tomorrow morning. Expect for tornadoes to happen. So that will conclude my video tonight, and I hope you all stay safe and take this very seriously, because it's a very powerful storm, and it's going to be one to be remembered for sure. Had a lot of special things to it, and is continuing to make a name for itself. So please take this seriously, and stay safe.